how can you make sure that you charge customers the highest possible price that they are willing to pay? In my experience as an entrepreneurship professor, determining the actual price of a new product is one of the most challenging parts when creating a startup. In this video, I will therefore show you how you can use a specific free AI application to quickly explore customers' willingness to pay for your new product idea. Welcome to the Gen AI Nerd channel. In the first part of this video, I will briefly explain how you can adequately calculate customers' willingness to pay for new products. Next, I will demonstrate a specific AI application that can help you to explore reasonable pricing ranges for your product in minutes at zero cost. So let's jump in. Now, when you want to explore the willingness to pay of customers, actually the worst thing you can do is to simply ask customers how much money they want to pay. If you do that, there is actually a substantial risk of what we call underpricing your product, which means that you might set a price that is actually below the highest price that customers would actually be willing to pay. Therefore, we need more sophisticated approaches to actually establish a good pricing range for your product. And one of these approaches that's quite popular is the Westendorp Price Sensitivity Meter, where you will actually explore willingness to pay by asking 4 different questions. First, you will ask a customer, at what price would you consider the product to be so expensive that you would not consider buying it? But you will also ask a second question, namely, at what price would you consider the product to be priced so low that you would feel the quality couldn't be very good? A third question that you ask is, at what price would you consider the product starting to get expensive so that it's not out of the question, but you would have to give some thought to buy it? And the final question we want to ask is, at what price would you consider the product to be a bargain, a great buy for the money? So these are 4 different questions you need to ask to be able to calculate a good pricing range. And so based on if customers give that answer, you can actually do a kind of calculation to determine what is the pricing range for your product. Now, normally doing this kind of analysis is quite time consuming and sometimes even expensive, because getting sufficient responses from potential customers on these questions is not straightforward. However, I have developed an AI application where we can use synthetic customers, meaning customers that are created with large language models, to quickly get a first insight into customers' actual willingness to pay. So let me show you now how you can use this specific application. So here we are in my application. This is a Streamlit application called the Willingness to Pay Synthetic Simulator, and you will find a link to the application in the YouTube description. And the first thing you will need to do to use this application is to give it a Croc API key. And so this is a key, kind of long password, that will allow the application to talk with large language models on the Croc cloud platform. And then this actually allows you to use the application fully for free, so you don't have to pay for tokens. So how can you get a Croc API key? Very simple. You go to croc.com, and this is not a Croc of Elon Musk, but another company. And here you can go to developers and click on free API key. Then you will have to log in. I have been logged in with my Google account now here, and then you can simply click on create API key, and then you will get this long password, which is an API key that you then have to enter here. So I will now enter my own Croc API key. Yes, so I have entered my own API key now. We will use here a Llama model, so that's the open source model we are using here. If you want, because we will create a random sample of customers, you can also put a different random seed, but that will typically not make a big difference. But now we can put it, for instance, on 42. So this is kind of the initial information you have to give on the left-hand side. And then we can actually start preparing for an experiment where we can calculate the willingness to pay for a specific product that you want to introduce. And of course, the first thing you need to do is to give a description of your product. And let me show you now a product description that I have prepared. Yes, so I have now here added the description of a particular product called the Energy Tamagotchi. So this is a kind of virtual pet that can help you in saving energy, which will kind of gamify your energy usage. Yeah? So this is kind of an hypothetical example of a product for which I want to explore the willingness to pay. Here I also have to indicate my target customer. And for instance, here we could now say I want to target customers that are renting an apartment. You can make the customer group more broad or more narrow. You can play with that. So that's now what I want to do. Here I have to highlight the geographical focus. So now I will focus on Germany. The age range of my respondents is between 25 and 65. That makes sense. And here you can highlight the number of respondents that you want. Yeah? So here it's now as a default 40. I can make it bigger or smaller. You have to be a bit careful. Don't exaggerate in the number of respondents because we are relying here on a free large language model, but if you would put really like 200 people, it might actually hit some rate limits in token generation, and then the application might stop. So at least for the start, I would start with a rather lower number. So I think 40 is already quite okay to get some first insights. So these are the inputs that I need to give, and then I can simply press on Save Setup. So now we have saved it, and now you see that it's saying go to the Run tab. So now we can go to the Run tab, and you will see here it had already started working. So what did the application now do for me? It actually creates for me a randomized sample. So based on kind of the restrictions I've given, it's now creating a sample of 40 respondents with different ages, different genders, and of course now only German nationality, because that's what I indicated. And so here a kind of random sample has been created. So that's step one. And now actually this application is creating for all of these respondents a more detailed description of their persona. So who they are based on these kind of demographic variables that we have given. It's now generating a persona. So now we have to briefly wait until the personas have been generated. Yes, so now the personas have been generated. So then you can actually see here on the right-hand side the description. So now there is a kind of bio for every single respondent. So if we go a bit here to the right, you can see we now have this kind of bio for them now. Apparently a lot of them live now in Berlin, but that's, of course, it's in Germany, so that actually makes sense. So now what is happening is that this application is actually asking all the respondents to answer the 4 questions for the sensitivity analysis. And so every respondent will answer these questions, and based on these answers, this application will start calculating the willingness to pay following this Van Westendorp approach. Yes, so now the third step has been executed. So the questions have been asked to the respondents. And now we can go to our final result tab to see actually the results of the analysis. So now we can see a bit like what is the overall price sensitivity. And so it's saying medium to cheap €5, medium cheap €10, median expensive €20, median too expensive €30. That's a kind of the range we see here. And here you get these Van Westendorp price sensitivity curves that have been calculated. And here we can see a bit that our potential pricing range, according to the respondents here, is between 10 and 15 euros. It even did some sensitivity analysis for different demographics. So here we can actually see for different age categories whether their willingness to pay maybe is significantly different. Here there only seem to be small differences. So here we get some additional analysis also for gender. But here, for instance, the kind of differences seem to be rather small. And again, you get some visuals here. So in that way, you can do quite an in-depth analysis of the willingness to pay. So this is what this application can do. Of course, this is not replacing doing willingness to pay analysis with real customers. Still, we are just using here kind of an LLM that is making predictions based on predicting the next word in a sentence. But I use this, for instance, for educational purposes, because in this way, for instance, my students can get very quickly some initial feedback on potential willingness to pay, and at least they can start making some calculations. They can experiment with different value propositions to see if that would really change the willingness to pay. So this is really a tool for first exploration, but I hope that in that way it can be valuable. So I hope this video can help you to engage in price sensitivity analysis. And if you like the video, please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for your attention. Bye.